Chapter 4. Shadows of Loyalty. As the train from Timber grinds to a halt beneath the faint blush of dawn, its steel frame settling with a groan against the western continent's rugged edge, Squall, Zell, Selfie, Quistis, and Rinoa step onto the gravel-strewn outskirts of Galbadia Garden, a fortress of red brick and steel that looms starkly against the horizon. Unlike Balham Garden's gleaming circular elegance, a sanctuary of glass and verdant courtyards cradling its spire, Galbadia Garden exudes a raw, utilitarian might, its angular corridors lined with reinforced panels and flickering neon strips. A martial echo of a bygone era's ingenuity repurposed for Galbadia's militaristic creed. The air hums with the whine of advanced tech. Seed students clad in sleek training gear dart through to the sky on flying suits, their thrusters cast in brief flares as they weave in disciplined formations, while others line the hallways, their rhythmic push-ups echoing off the steel walls, sweat beading on brows as instructors bark commands. A stark contrast to Balaam's serene drills. Rinoa adjusts her stance, clutching at Squall, understanding where she is and the gravity of the situation. She requests Squall to keep her secret and pretend she is Seed member of his team. Squall agrees with the faintest level of distrust as Rinoa surveys the fortress with a mix of awe and unease. Perhaps there is more to this request than Squall can understand in this moment. The party is summoned to wait in the second-floor reception, a sparse chamber of cold stone and steel benches, its lone window framing the garden's training fields, where flying suits streak the sky. The air tinged with the murmur of unease among gathered cadets. Whispers ripple through the corridors, their voices low with worry over the sorceress Idea's growing hold on President Delling, her influence a dark shroud over Galbadia's leadership, a concern sparked by her dramatic intervention at Timber's TV station. Quistis enters after a short detour, briefly stepping aside to check on Balham Garden via a comm device mounted in the corridor. She sought out reassurance after the broadcast's chaos. Her concern focused on their home garden of Balaam, and to comfort Zell, whose guilt over his slip, mentioning Seed lived during Cypher's outburst, gnaws at him. His brow creased as he paces the reception's edge. Relief comes swiftly as she announces the official communication. Galbadia absolves Balaam of responsibility, declaring Cypher Almasi's act an individual transgression, a rogue deed not tied to Seed's banner, easing Zell's tension as he exhales. Although a shadow lingers in the party despite the first positive they've encountered. The group's thought quickly turned to Cypher, the prevailing belief among them that his brazen crime, holding Delling hostage on live broadcast, has led to his execution. Quisits informing from the communication a grim fate presumed under Galbadia's harsh justice. Rinoa's warmth softens into a tender melancholy, her hands resting on the table as she recalls his childhood confidence. Memories of a bold boy who once strode Timber's streets with unshakable swagger, his dreams of knighthood alight in her younger years. Her voice wistful as she lingers on those lost days. Angelo nudging her with quiet empathy. Squall remains a pillar of indifference, his gunblade propped nearby as he leans against the wall, his scarred face impassive as he dismisses Cypher's plight with a subtle shift of his stance, untouched by sentiment for his rival. Zell, though never fond of Cypher's arrogance, shifts uneasily, his energy tempered by a grudging sense that execution was too harsh for a troubled soul. while Selfie, her brightness dimmed, echoes this unease, her hands clasped as she reflects on his flaws yet questions such a final punishment. The group's mixed feelings a tangled thread in the reception's stillness. Their reverie fractures as the party are summoned to a briefing with Galbadia Garden's headmaster. En route to the meet-up, two familiar figures approach. Fujin and Raijin, Cypher's steadfast companions from Balam Garden, their present a jarring echo of their shared past. Fujin, a lithe figure with short silver hair framing a stern gaze, clad in a teal coat that flares with a brisk stride, carries an air of quiet intensity, her single eye sharp beneath a patch. Raijin, broad and towering in a bulky vest and dark pants, exudes a gruff loyalty. His staff slung across his back as he lumbers forward, his boisterous energy tempered by purpose. They intercept Squall as the party moves toward the briefing location, their approach halting the group in a steel-lined corridor where push-ups still echo. Fujin reveals they are to deliver important new orders from Headmaster Sid, her tone clipped as she conveys Balam's directive to assist Galbadia Garden while maintaining vigilance. Her hands steady as clutching the sealed directive, Raijin nodding with a rough assurance as he emphasizes Sid's trust in Squall's command, his staff tapping the floor for emphasis. Squall accepts the gesture with hesitancy, as his indifference unshaken by their connection to Cypher, the missive a tether to Balam's distant will. Squall shares the distressing news as best he could about Cypher's execution. Fujin and Raijin meet him with the most disbelief possible, insisting Cypher is incapable of allowing such an event to happen, even in the circumstances. Unaware of what to think now, Squall and the party press onward, Fujin and Raijin stepping aside with a lingering glance of concern. Headmaster Martine of Galbadia awaits for their briefing down the esplanade, to a private plaza outside of bare stone lit by harsh overhead lights. His lean frame clad in a formal tunic, his bespectacled gaze piercing beneath a mane of dark hair. His authority as Galbadia Garden's headmaster tempered by a quiet unease. His tone clipped as he conveys Balam's directive to assist Galbadia Garden. Martine unveils the mission, his tone sharp with urgency as he reveals Idea's intent, to wield her mage and fear as a tool for world domination through Galbadian forces, establishing Galbadia Garden as her base. Her sorceress power, a looming threat to all nations, a plan born from her ascent over President Daling, and newly appointed position next to him. Garden being the independent forces find them directly opposed to this tyranny, although the safety of Galbadia Garden at the forefront of his mind, as they would not be exempt from her reign either. He tasks the party with her assassination, directing them to Deling City, Galbadia's capital. To assist in this monumental task, Martine introduces Irvine Kineas, who follows from the shadows aside, a lanky sharpshooter in a tan duster and cowboy hat, his rifle slung with an easy charm that masks a keen precision. His relaxed air, a counterpoint to Martine's gravity. The strike to be actioned at her inauguration parade, a desperate bid to sever her grip before it tightens further. Squall rests steady as he absorbs the charge, his focus narrowing, while Zell with renewed purpose, Selfie's resolve sharpens, Quistis absorbing the weight of the order, her hand steadying, and Renoa's unease deepens, her connection to this land a silent burden as the mission takes shape, their path a shadowed march toward a fateful confrontation. The party departs for the train to Deling with Headmaster Martine's heavy words echoing inside them, all that failure is not an option. With Martine's orders sealed, the party board the train bound for Delling City, its steel carriage humming through the western continent's dusk-lit plains. The rhythmic clatter of rails a steady pulse beneath their feet. Irvine Kinneas settles among them, his rifle propped nearby, his easy charm tipping into borderline sleaze as he leans towards Selfie and Renoa, his posture relaxed yet overly familiar, his attempts to charm them laced with a roguish grin as he gestures with a casual hand, his hat tilting with each flirtatious tilt of his head. Selfie's brightness flickers with a mix of amusement and discomfort, while Renoa's warmth cools, her stance shifting away, Angelo's ears twitching at her side. Quistis intervenes as she steps forward, her tone firm with reprimand as she halts his advances, her gaze sharp with authority that cuts through the carriage's dim light. Irvine relents, his grin fading as he leans back, his demeanour softening into a wistful air as he muses on the solitary life of a sharpshooter, his hands resting idly as he conveys the loneliness of a sniper's perch, a fleeting vulnerability that lingers as the train speeds toward the capital. Squall's indifference, a silent anchor amidst the exchange. The train slows as it enters Delling City, its steel carriage easing to a halt beneath a sky streaked with twilight, disgorging Squall, Zell, Selfie, Renoa, Quistis, and Irvine into the heart of Galbadia's capital, a sprawling metropolis where neon-lit arches tower over boulevards, their metal and glass surfaces aglow with crimson, sapphire and gold, casting an otherworldly sheen across marble-clad buildings adorned with intricate carvings. The air pulses with anticipation, the streets thronged with crowds pressing toward plazas where statues of past rulers loom, their stern gazes dwarfed by the flurry of preparations for Idea's inauguration, banners of black and gold unfurling from lampposts, their edges fluttering in the evening breeze, while ornate floats adorned with feathers and shimmering fabrics weave through the throng. Technicians adjusting spotlights that bathe the central arch in a stark brilliance. The party's first call in Delling to rendezvous with the famous General Fury Caraway, who is briefed on the complexities that lay ahead. Upon approach to the General's mansion, they are instructed by his guards, before anyone gains audience with General Caraway, they must complete the trials of the unknown king, where there is a code to gain entry for audience with the General. With haste the party frustrated, but determined venture from Delling City's neon glow to the tomb of the unknown king, a sprawling labyrinth of weathered stone and shadowed corridors nestled beyond the capital's outskirts, its air thick with dust and the faint echo of past struggles. A deadly training ground for Galbadian seed cadets, much like the fire cavern that Squall honed his skills on during his seed exam. Unlike Ifrit, its trials here guarded by the Guardian Force brothers, Sacred and Minotaur, towering beasts of earth, whose rumbling steps shake the cracked marble floors. Squall leads the way, deeper into the maze of the tomb, only showing more resilience for each dead end they encounter and the monsters' attempts to harm them along the routes, until their arrival in what seemed to the central caverns. A rumble and shake on the ground, Squall's gunblade flashing as the brothers emerge, Sacred's hulking form wielding a massive mace, Minotaur's broader frame hefting a jagged axe, their roars reverberating as they charge, the ground quaking beneath their might. Zell's fists hammer Sacred's stony hide, Selfie's agility dodges Minotaur's sweeping blows. Irvine's rifle peppers precise shots. And Renoa's resolve steadies Angelo's strikes. Until Squall's precise slashes fell the pair, their essence yielding like Ifrites in the fire cavern in what seemed an eternity ago now. The brothers absorbed as a guardian force to junction, their earthen power surging into the party's arsenal. Amidst the debris, Squall stumbles upon tattered notes left by failed cadets, scribbled pleas and regrets etched into the stone, prompting a rare introspection, his scarred brow softening as he questions his leadership with a quiet pride, recognizing his ability to guide where others faltered, a strength he seldom acknowledges. Renoa, catching the shift, watches him with a growing warmth, her gaze lingering as she sees beyond his stoic mask to the steady heart beneath, their bond deepening amidst the tomb's perils as they secure the code, a faded ID etched into a rusted blade to unlock entry to Caraway's mansion, the trial a silent forge for their unity. With the code secured from the tomb of the unknown king, the party crosses Dealing City's neon-lit boulevards to General Fury Caraway's mansion, a grand edifice of polished marble and towering columns nestled amidst the capital's opulence, its iron gates parting to reveal a foyer aglow with chandelier light, the air thick with the scent of wax and authority. Renoa, her warmth edged with defiance, steps closer to Squall before they enter, her hands gesturing as she reminds him of the seed contract's terms, still binding them to her cause, her tone insistent that he not abandon her in this house. Upon a long wait in an upstairs office, a briefing room of sorts, lined with maps and velvet curtains, with the party's impatience is visibly growing, Renoa decides to take matters into her own hands, insisting she will get to the bottom of this and fetch the general, along with a throwaway comment that shocks the group to its core that this is her house, and the general is her father as she leaves the room. Shortly after, and still stunned by Renoa's revelation, everyone's thoughts are interrupted as General Caraway greets them, a stern figure in a dark uniform adorned with silver epaulets, his greying hair severe, his posture rigid as he ushers into the briefing room, his top military rank as Galbardia's commander, casting a formidable shadow. He briefs them on the sorceress Idea's assassination plan ahead. What is clear is his intent to protect Galbardia from her dominion, though a deeper motive surfaces as Squall forwardly mentions Renoa. His daughter, a secret unveiled amidst the tension, their bond frayed by his role as the government's iron fist and her allegiance to the anti-government forest owls, yet his utmost efforts to shield her flicker in his guarded gaze. Caraway insisting she not be involved despite her eagerness to be, and Squall reflects inwardly. He ponders the unusual alliance. The Gardens joining forces with a totalitarian, the Galbadian general. This thought a breach of Seed's creed to follow orders without question, the anomaly stirring a quiet unease about their purpose, though he masks it with stoic resolve. Accepting the general's wishes pertaining to his daughter, however, putting his own cards on the table, revealing his allegiance to her cause once this mission is over, one that directly opposes Caraway's view on the world. The tension only cut by Irvine's charm, and wit insistent on continuing with this the task ahead, delivered in a manner only a sharpshooter's calm could, the briefing's weight settling over them like Delling's twilight haze. Introductions concluded, General Caraway leads Squall, Zell, Selfie, Renoa, Quistis, and Irvine from the mansion's marble confines to the parade ground in Delling City's heart. A vast plaza encircled by neon-lit arches, its polished stone surface alive with a hum of anticipation as banners of black and gold ripple in the evening breeze, floats poised like gilded spectres under the glow of towering spotlights. Caraway, his dark uniform crisp as he strides ahead, escorts them through the bustling perimeter, his steps measured as he reveals the assassination plans. His tone steady as he initiates two teams, the sniper team made up of Irvine and Squall, and the gateway team made up of Zell, Selfie, and Quistis. He points to the clock tower above the president's residence, a raising deck of moving sculptures and clock face connected to the president's palace, used to commemorate and celebrate occasions for the city and its people. Here Irvine will perch, a rifle awaiting him poised to strike Idea as her float passes beneath the marble arch, further down the presidential lane. Caraway gestures to a trap mechanism, a timed gate under the arch, to prevent comings or goings to ensnare Idea's entourage, amplifying the sniper's window, a plan honed by his military precision, fueled by his need to protect his daughter and Galbardia alike. Unsuspecting during the parade and fireworks, while Squall is to blend into the crowd, ready to intercept if the shot falters for a head-on assault. A position not for the faint of heart, but one Squall accepts with his usual straightforward and unfazed demeanour. The gateway team must keep their movements cloaked by the revelry. Lingering near the gate, with quick access provided by the general to execute the trap, operating the console to do so, then tasked with securing an escape route through a hidden underground passage for the party. Squall's gunblade rests steady as he surveys the ground, his scarred brow set with focus. Zell's fists flexing in readiness. Selfie's brightness sharpening. Irvine's rifle shifting with a sharpshooter's calm, and Quistis's gaze tracing the layout, the parade's grandeur, a stark backdrop to the lethal intent unfolding beneath its shimmer. The group surveys the lane leading from the president's palace to the marble arch one last time. As the parade star is quickly approaching, they return to Caraway's residence to prepare. After Caraway's escort concludes, the gateway team of Quistis, Zell and Selfie are in the briefing room when Rinoa approaches. Her steps eager as she joins them, asking after Squall, as she had found what she was looking for during her previous absence from the party. Her eagerness quelled as Quistis informs her. The sniper team of Squall and Irvine are downstairs already preparing and readying their way to the president's residence. Rinoa's resolve flaring as she unveils a plan of her own, her fingers tracing the sleek contours of the Odina bangle, a device crafted to suppress sorceress power, its origins a faint whisper of Estar's arcane ingenuity. Quistis turns, her tone firm with caution as she warns Rinoa of the bangle's untested nature, her sharp gaze assessing the risk against Idea's might, a practicality honed by her instructor's past. The tactical assessment lost on Rinoa, Quistis's assertion grows impatient and borders on insulting, echoing how exactly well thought out this action would be, and how could they get close enough for the Odin's bangle to work even if it could. Quistis recalls her previous demotion from instructor rank, and comes to terms that in front of her is not a trained seed member. Her voice softening with a plea for Rinoa to trust the team's strategy over a solo gambit. Rinoa's warmth hardens into defiance, her stance unwavering as she insists on confronting Idea herself, if that's what it takes. her belief in the bangle a fragile shield against the sorceress's shadow. The tension between them a quiet rift as the Gateway team leave Rinoa in the briefing room. Everyone not aware would lay ahead. As the parade's fervour swells in Delling City's neon-lit plaza, the teams approach their positions, Squall and Irvine threading through the bustling crowd, their steps quickening towards a shadowed stairwell behind the President's palace that would lead to the makeshift sniper's perch. Irvine slows momentarily, his usual charm shadowed by a flicker of unease as he broaches the morality of their task. His hands tightening as he wrestles with the rightness of killing Idea, questioning how Seed can just accept orders even from potentially forces steeped in evil. His gaze searching Squall for clarity. Squall meets Irvine's doubt with a cold pragmatism, as he counters with a belief that good and bad are mere illusions. Two sides with differing views. No absolute truth beyond the mission at hand. His tone resolute as he urges focus over philosophy. Irvine's posture stiffens, his unease lingering as he absorbs Squall's stark perspective. Their exchange a tense thread woven into their approach of the stairwell's gloom. The crowds roar in the distant background. As twilight deepens over Delling City's parade ground, Squall, Zell, Selfie, Rinoa, Quistis, and Irvine are preparing to their positions. The plaza now thrumming with crowds, banners of black and gold swaying above, floats adorned with feathers and shimmering fabrics. Performative dancers moving in well-timed routines to the entertainment of the crowd. Spotlights casting a stark brilliance over the scene. Unbeknownst to the party back at the General's mansion, Rinoa has made escape from her father's safety under lock and key, and slips into the President's residence, using her father's name to gain access no member for the public could, and eventually into Idea's throng. Her resolve blazing as she nears Idea, preparing to greet the crowd. Her black gown of feathered cascade, gold headdress glinting. Rinoa's fingers clutching the Odin bangle, hidden in her blue coat's deep pocket, aiming to suppress the sorceress's power. Relying on friendly persuasion, a closer proximity only for a surge of dark magic to lash out, crumpling her to the stone ground. Rinoa stands, but not on her own accord. Much like her childhood friend Cypher before her, she is now under control of Idea's sorcery. As the inauguration begins, Idea gracefully walks to the President's balcony to address the crowd, although internally spewing the despise for the people she is looking to rule, memories of the shame and condemnation toward the sorceress for generations. Reveling in her new-found position, she has attained from their destroyer to ruler with glee. Rinoa and President Delling standing by her side, ready to bring in this new reign of terror. Idea brings the President forward as the crowd cheers, only to strike him down and assume his mantle. To Squall's surprise, the crowd's roars deepen under their enchantment by the sorceress. With a flash of her finger, two gargoyles from Central Arch shed their petrification and leap to Idea's side to patrol the President's balcony during the parade, Squall's immediate thought turning to the safety of Rinoa. As the float leaves for the journey down the lane through the crowd, Cypher stands next to Idea, raising his Hyperion to joy of the crowd. Squall, momentarily shocked, but regains his focus quickly, leaps into action immediately using the crowd's glee as the useful distraction to gain entry onto the balcony with Irvine following like his shadow. They both in hope of being in time for Rinoa. The two Iguions hulking reptilian beasts with jagged claws and petrifying gazes, summoned by Idaea's will, their scales glinting as they close on Renoa's prone body. Squall charges with the crowd's roar as the parade is underway in the background, his gunblade flashing in precise arcs, slicing through one Igrion's stony hide, as Irvine's quick trigger finger hammer the other with debilitating bullets. Their strikes a desperate flurry to shield her, the beasts collapsing with guttural roars under the assault. Renoa coming to, her fear now turned to relief. To see Squall standing over her, the guardian he had become. Renoa inconsolable as her courage turned to dread when he plan failed, and for the first time met with empathy and understanding from Squall, assuring her he hadn't forgotten their contract in a comforting tone. Irving approaches the planted rifle behind the clock tower, meeting the aura of the moment as he picks it up and takes position awaiting the timed ascend of the clock tower in line with the celebrations, giving him a clear view of the float. Squall and Renoa, mesmerised by his concentration, recalling his comments earlier on the train and the lonely life of a sharpshooter. Leaving Irvine to his focus, Squall mentions to Renoa about Cypher's safety on board Idaea's float, neither having the time to process how and why he is there. The mood quickly shifts to the realization that if Irvine's fails, Squall would have to best him in order to make an attempt on the sorceress. Renoa, stunned by the emotional detachment it takes to have that type of preparation and fortitude as a seed, Squall focused on the objective and nothing else. Renoa takes understanding, but wishes it doesn't come to this for the sake of both Squall and Cypher. Two men poised to play significant roles in her life. One's act concluded, and the other's just starting. The Gateway team assumes their position in the arch, with no control team or guards inside, as promised by Caraway and Idaea's float crossing beneath them. The time strikes, and the necessary actions are taken. Down the lane, the clock tower raises to bright sound and light as they flick the switch. Lowering the arch's gates, its iron lattice slamming down, stealing freedom for Idaea's float temporarily, trapping it in clear sight. Irvine, now perched atop the clock tower, steadies his rifle as clock tower creaks open upon its ascent. Idaea's float gliding into view, her black gown a feathered cascade, gold headdress glinting. His finger trembles on the trigger. Squall insisting on taking the shot to the recoil of Irvine. The momentous weight of moment paralyzes him, and the power he has to turn the hands of time with a slight movement of his trigger finger. Destiny left to one man clouds his thoughts. Squall yelling the command become mute in the background of his thought. Irvine releases from his position, falling limp and slumping over. The moment proving too much, he sinks deeper into his own self-doubt. His tone wavering as he muses on the weight of taking this life, probing his resolve with a sharpshooter's unease. Met by Squall's cold assertion that orders define their path, not morality, Squall's unlikely comfort takes Irvine aback. The mutual understanding of the gravity of the task that must be done, relieving him of his duty, Squall readies himself, clenching the handle of his gunblade, the revolver. High coordinates a path to leap down to the parade to face the sorceress. Irvine, inspired by his unquestionable courage, gathers and stands in a flash of a moment before Squall can react. His long exhale, the collective noise of the parade echoes into silence as his views turns down his scope. His finger trembles, then steadies on the trigger before firing. The crack of the gunshot slows time itself. the bullet's purpose since its inception, and creation has been fulfilled, streaking downward past the parade, tearing through the noise of the occasion, with precision only someone as skilled a marksman as Irvine could muster. The bullet meets its end to shatter against a shimmering magical barrier held by the sorceress's hand, her disdain a silent rebuke as it deflects with a crackle. Chaos erupts as soldiers and patrons of the inaugurations clash. Some still blissfully unaware, under Idea's ruse, others with fear and hopelessness consuming them as the scene unfolds to their confusion. Squall without hesitation, like a sprinter of the mark at the sound of the gunshot, leaps down into the commotion, commandeering one of the Galbadian security service vehicles below, accelerating at blinding pace towards the trapped float, his focus as clear as his intentions. He meets Cypher with disgust at what he becomes since his failure on the seed exam. Where there was once class and honour, now replaced with pride and ego, reduced to evil's lapdog. Cypher disagreeing, standing in front of Idea, holding himself akin to the noble knights he dreamt of as a boy. The faintest of smirks as he raises his Hyperion with loyal zeal facing his rival. Their two distinct styles engage, Squall's gunblade weaving precise, controlled strikes from a steady, low stance, his scarred brow set with focus, while Cypher counters with brash, sweeping arcs of his Hyperion, his tall frame leaning forward in a swaggering, aggressive posture, their rivalry a storm of steel as taunts from Cypher rain down to distract his nemesis. Squall's relentless accuracy, unaffected by these cries of destiny and fate defying death, as he topples his rival with a final decisive blow, their rivalry a storm of steel halted by the sorceress's looming shadow. Adia both shocked and outraged that a mere seed stands before her planted from both a metaphorical and physical garden she despises. Squall standing tall despite weakened and catching his breath after dealing with Cypher, is re-energized as he sees his support on left and right. Craving redemption for their mistakes on this evening, both Rinoa and Irving take stance next to Squall, their loyalty unwavering despite the odds, inspired by Squall's heroics for them. Idea's magic surges, a dark aura flaring as she unleashes a barrage of arcane force, her hands weaving spells with regal precision, met by Squall's gunblade slashing through the air, his steady, low stance bracing against her onslaught, set with defiance as he presses forward. Irvine, no longer trembling from the earlier miss, takes aim once, unleashing a barrage of quick pistol shots, his shot streaking through the night, only to falter against Idea's shimmering barrier, a futile echo as her power intensifies. Rinoa's nimble movements near the float's edge avoid cause for concern as her and Angelo counter with a quick flurry of strikes. The Odine bangle a shattered hope, barely holding on to its original form. It all proves futile as Idea's magic erupts. A swell of frost engulfs the air, and a lance of ice raising overhead of Idea, and like the bullet previously intended for her, it is delivered in a streaking downward spiral piercing through Squall. Its chilling force sweeping through the resistance as it crumbles after passing through shadows engulf them. Rinoa's prone figure, a silent witness, stood in shock, watching Squall collapse to the ground, the parade's revelry fading into a void, their defeat a stark testament to the sorceress's ascendant might. Squall looking up to distant fireworks in the sky, a faint recognizable voice screaming his name can be heard cutting through the crowd in the background. Rinoa petrified gaze, looking over him the last he sees as he loses hearing and his sight fades to black.